What GPU should I get? That is a common question that my viewers have, and we always have tons of GPUs to choose from, but there's availability and pricing, and there's a number of factors. But AMD, have they come to the rescue? We have a new GPU from them today. This past year, NVIDIA has been cranking out a lot of GPUs, but pricing has been questionable as well as performance. But this is the new one from AMD, the RX960 XT. Let's get into this, especially because it has 16 gigabytes of VRAM. I've been sent a number of the Asus Prime GPUs across both lines, NVIDIA and AMD, and that's going to keep things very interesting because the designs are very similar physically. But when it comes to some of the AMD features like the AMD RDNA 4 architecture, the compute units, this is the 3rd gen RT, 2nd gen AI accelerators, AMD Hyper RX, AMD Fidelity FX Super Resolution. Yeah, this is going to be slightly different with some similar outcomes in the end. So let's just get into this. Asus has software called GPU Tweak 3, where you can really understand what's going on with your GPU. It's very easy to use and very informative, so I definitely like it across both lines. We have the familiar Asus packaging, and of course we have our documentation right up top, but we're going to take this out and get straight to the GPU. It's nice and packaged, nothing of interest here yet. That's empty right there. Let's just take this out and put it on the test bench. But first, one of my favorite pastimes. For I/O, we have DisplayPort 2.1a and HDMI. We have pass-through air on the rear. We have a recessed power plug here, and that might be a little awkward to get to, so we'll see about that. And then here is a switch for performance mode or quiet mode. And overall, Asus hasn't ventured too far from their traditional look of the Prime line. I do like the fact that we went old school for the power plug. So let's go ahead and place it on the test bench, and a 450 watt PSU is recommended as a minimum for this. And yep, putting in the power connector is a little awkward. I'm cutting up my fingernails here with the edge here. I'm not sure why they would do it so recessed. For the test bench, we're using the AMD Ryzen 9 9950X 3D CPU, as well as an Arctic Liquid Freezer 3 Pro 360mm AIO on the Asus Crosshair X870E Extreme. So this is an ROG motherboard, and the RAM is 8,000 megatransfers by Kingston Fury. To minimize outside variables, we're going to be running all of these benchmarks in 4K. This presses the GPU. Basically, we'll be GPU bound. You wouldn't necessarily buy this for 4K gaming and stuff like that though, but it does have 16 gigs of VRAM. First thing we do is get to the latest drivers. We are all set there. We also have hardware info 64 all up and running, so we can monitor our temperatures, voltage, all that good stuff. And then our monitor resolution and frame rate are all set. This is a 4K 144 Hz display. The Performance tab for the AMD Adrenalin software definitely offers some good information and tracking capabilities, so you can set this as you need to. And it's a good idea to make sure that the application does notice all the games that you tend to play. And for the streamers out there, it does have options for recording and streaming. Our first benchmark is going to be in DaVinci Resolve, and it does show the RX960 XT with 16 gigabytes of VRAM. That's going to be very helpful for many video editing projects. That's a good amount. And to test that, we're going to be running Puget Benchmark for DaVinci Resolve. And we have DaVinci Resolve Studio 20 that it's going to be running, as I definitely do my fair share of video editing. This will run a number of different scenarios like H.264, 4.22 10-bit, and 8-bit, just really a lot of common things that video editors use. And definitely kudos to the Asus team on this Prime GPU because it is very silent. It's on the performance mode, it's not even on the quiet mode. Now this is an interesting score. So a Puget bench score of 7331, which is a lot lower than the RTX 5060 with only 8 gigs of VRAM. So we're gonna have to dive into that in a separate video. Now here we're running Blender Benchmark. It has 3 different scenes that it's rendering. The Blender Benchmark run is complete, and the Monster, Junk Shop, and Classroom scores for the RX 9060 XT are not looking too good compared to the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5060. This is almost twice as fast as the 9060 XT, let alone the 5070 Ti. Yeah, very good scores there. And of course the 5080 really just tears it apart. So Blender may not be the choice for this GPU. For TimeSpy Extreme, the 9060 XT got a graphical score of 7540, while the 5060, the NVIDIA GPU, got a score of 6356. So the 9060 XT is about 15% faster than the 5060. But if we jump to the 5070 Ti, yeah, this is about twice as fast as the 9060 XT. TimeSpy and TimeSpy Extreme are in 3D Mark. They're very good and reliable benchmarks for comparing GPUs and CPUs. This is looking very good. Decent frame rate, just over 110 FPS in this scene, and the lighting looks great. The RX960 XT got a TimeSpy score of 16466 for the graphical score. That's about 18% faster than the RX 5060. Now compared to the 5070 Ti, it's not even close. That's about 60% of the score. So yeah, this is still doing okay in this price bracket here. This benchmark is called Steel Nomad, and it really excels at testing the overall performance of your PC, combining the CPU and GPU basically into a usable score that is very good to compare. And similar results here, the 9060 XT at 3697, about 15% faster than the RX 5060, but the 5070 Ti is nearly twice as fast. This is a relatively new benchmark on the 3D Mark suite called Speedway. This focuses on the ray tracing capabilities of a GPU. And it's clear the RX 9060 XT is struggling with this ray tracing benchmark. We're only at about 22 FPS. It's very choppy. Roughly 21 FPS is definitely a struggle bus experience for the 9060 XT, while the RTX 5060 did about 35 FPS and the 5070 Ti 75 FPS. And now it's time for Port Royal. This is a real-time ray tracing benchmark. It's older than Speedway, which is also a ray tracing benchmark, but this is the real-time ray tracing benchmark from a number of years ago. And so far it's doing okay. The 9060 XT did about 45 FPS, about 12% better than the RTX 5060, but the 5070 Ti, yeah, that's twice as good. And now Monster Hunter Wilds benchmark. This is a very cool benchmark. You get to see a lot of capabilities of a GPU in this scenario. We're getting some decent FPS, and of course frame generation is on. And as a reminder, this is in 4K. The 9060 XT did a really good job in Monster Hunter Wilds, and compared to the 5060, that's about a 40% difference right there. Compared to the 5070 Ti, that's actually not bad, only a 25% difference in performance. And finally with Star Citizen, we're getting about 95 to 100 FPS, FSR is enabled, and this is a smooth experience in 4K. We're utilizing about 12 out of the 16 gigabytes of VRAM available, and that's one of the main reasons why we're able to play Star Citizen in 4K. And throughout all of this testing, the RX 9060 XT has not gone above 60 degrees Celsius. That's pretty decent. Memory junction temperature maxed out at 86, and a GPU hotspot at 81 degrees. This is a pretty good experience playing Star Citizen in 4K. So in a perfect world, I would definitely be talking about pricing and the price to performance and all that stuff, but we all know that the world is crazy right now. So even though this GPU is coming out and it's supposed to be at a very good competitive price point, that doesn't mean anything. MSRP is just like, who knows, right? So it does drop today. We'll see what happens with the pricing and if it's going to be stable, if there's going to be lots of availability. But kudos to AMD. They did make sure reviewers got this GPU well ahead of time. We had drivers well ahead of time, and we had plenty of time to test it, and AMD was there to answer any questions that we actually had. So this was a very smooth review process for us, and overall I don't really have any complaints. Now, specifically when it comes to this GPU, the RX 9060 XT, who is it for? Well, if you're into content creation like editing in DaVinci Resolve, Blender benchmarks, you're going to be somewhat disappointed. Maybe there's some software updates that, Blackmagic, that's DaVinci Resolve, and the Blender team can do to improve upon this. We'll have to wait and see. When it comes to gaming, game development is kind of interesting because a lot of games are built specifically for like AMD GPUs or even Intel GPUs or NVIDIA GPUs. So I would say check the games that you actually want to play, and do they have special features geared for AMD GPUs, like FSR and all that stuff. So if they do, then you're gonna have a great experience. And there's a long list of games that are very much compatible and optimized for AMD GPUs. So definitely check that out. I hope the inventory is there. I hope the pricing is there. And if so, then this is going to be a very easy recommendation for gamers. So kudos to this. I like the fact that we have lower tier GPUs that are somewhat hitting above their price. Well, I don't want to say price, but definitely hitting above their performance in certain games. Playing Star Citizen in 4K smoothly is possible because of that FSR technology and because of the 16 gigs of VRAM. That means a GPU like this with that technology and 16 gigs of VRAM can be used in your desktop PC for many years to come. If you were to buy a GPU today with only 8 gigs of VRAM, you're going to be sadly disappointed in the near term. So that's my take on the RX960 XT from AMD, specifically the Asus Prime. And if you have any questions, put them down below in the comments, and I'll do follow-up videos on this GPU as well. So if you like this video, hit the like and subscribe, share it, all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.